One of the big things I've been struggling with, and I know a lot of creators and a lot of social media people and businesses online struggle with, is getting attention and being able to grab people's attention and make them interested who don't know anything about your business and have them buy from you. And this has been something I've been working with and grappling is how do people do this? Like, is there like some copywriting like secrets I just don't know? Is there like some secret tactics that like after 5 years of just doing it, like you've been in the ringer and everything that like people just understand that I just don't like, are they smarter than me? Like what do like I remember there's a mentor and he said, I know Sam as just as much as you do about like copywriting, about selling. He's like, I know the same much you do. He's like, there's really no difference between you. I'm like, yeah, well, obviously the position, right? You're mentoring me. And so I had these like perceived notions. And then recently I just had something flipped. That was like, aha. That I started connecting a lot of different things. And I was like, wait, that makes sense. Wait, that makes sense. And like I started connecting all these different things. And I had this moment of clarity that I think I understand how to grab people who are unaware about what you do, make them aware, and get them interested in learning more and want to learn from you, get some value, and eventually buy from you. Now, I'm not saying I'm a master, I'm not saying I'm a wizard or guru out there. I'm just sharing what I have found personally helpful. And by the way, if you don't know who I am, my name is Brendan Fuller, and I am a marketing lead at a company, and we're working with like 5 to 6 different projects, and our main one is doing over 133,000 monthly recurring revenue. So when I'm talking about this, about my journey, where I was just saying about how I'm going through this and just like working in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, I've gone from a video editor who just like short form content to now I am copywriting, making funnels. How do I grab people's attention? So I know it's a little bit of a segue there, but all these lessons I'm going to share with you is ideally for the person who's 10 steps before me, who's starting to think about this, and a video I wish I had. Now, there might be people watching this that might be steps ahead and still want to kind of learn. By all means, I encourage you to watch this and maybe have some tips for me. I'd be absolutely interested to learn from it. But um, these are kind of like for the maybe like 3 to 4 or even 5 tips that I have learned personally, off the cuff, personally, that I wish I knew that's kind of just more recently come together. If that sounds interesting, then let's get into it. So number one is the AIDA framework. Now, I don't know about you. Maybe you've heard of it. Maybe you haven't. Either way, all I know is I've heard of this framework spewed out by just marketing textbooks back in college. It's like my client mentioned it to me. I've seen it just written on blogs from like everyone. Like the blogs that probably like these people are writing on that they probably don't get that much like they probably don't make that much money, but they just like do it anyways. And you like learn it on like Udemy or Skillshare. There's like Instagram courses where they say how to set up your Instagram and how like these big companies are using it and they're really raking it in. I'm like, dude, I've heard of it, I've seen it. I'm like, it just doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't seem applicable. It doesn't actually seem useful. And so for me, I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna put this on the shelf. It seems like one of those acronyms someone put together. Now, what does it really mean for those who doesn't know what it actually is? It's a framework to really describe what people do to kind of take action. And what do I mean by this? Like, what makes someone click and go through with like something? So it starts with someone having being aware of it, becoming aware. Then they have maybe a little bit of interest, and then they go into um, like a desire, and then they lead and end with an action. Now, I was like, okay, yeah, whatever. I'm like, that's a fancy way to say like try to explain a behavior that it doesn't really matter, right? It's like just make them click at the end of the day. It does not really matter. It's like let me get really scientific with this, and so that's the way I thought about it. I was like, yeah, whatever. But more recently, I read a book from I forget the name of him, but he was a CMO of Facebook, and he was also I think for eBay, and he wrote a book recently. It's actually quite new, called Click Here. Haven't read all of it. I only read the first couple chapters, but he mentioned how anytime he comes in a company, and specifically, I think when he was working at eBay, he talked about how they use the AIDA framework to really diagnose where they are in a campaign. I was like, oh, I'm like, interesting. They use AIDA. I haven't heard about it in a while. I'm like, okay, I'll pay attention. I'll read it and see what he has to say. And he was talking about it, and he said, yeah, people say like my like other marketers on my team probably would disagree, but he's like, I think it's actually helpful. And he outlined it, how they use it, and he said, when I look at the company, I'm like, where are we at a stage? If we are like in the awareness stage, like Facebook, everyone kind of knows Facebook, so they're in a later stage, like interests and desires. Like that's probably more of that. Like everyone kind of knows what Facebook is. So he's like, we don't really have to adjust that. But maybe in the early stages of eBay, our first focus was awareness. And I was like, huh. I'm like, that's interesting. I'm like, that's very interesting, right? And so just put it on the shelf there, right? And I'll come back to it. Well, I did come back to it. And so recently I had my client was like, hey, we're going to be running with this crypto list. I'll just give the details. The crypto list. And he's like, I want you to promote it. I'm like, okay, cool. Let's do it. Let's absolutely do it. I'm down to do this. And so we've done it before, but it's been years and years ago. So I'm like, okay. And it just magically, I just like thought of it. I'm like, what if I'm like, wait, we're running a campaign, crypto list, Facebook, Bing bong. Okay, we're running a campaign. AIDA. Let's get it. So awareness. We have awareness. That's my first focus for this week because my the client's like, what's the first step for marketing this? Awareness. We need awareness on this. Of course, exposure. We need awareness. We can focus on the interest, desire, whatever later on. And I was like, that'll be for later. That's like we can apply it from a mass scale, but we can also apply this to a micro scale. What do I mean by this? So it's like, okay, so anyone, if we look at this grand scale, like this goes to an individual person. Like when they see something, they have awareness, then they have interest, they have a desire, then they click on it. So if they see an ad, they have awareness. Oh, they read the ad. Oh, that's interesting. Maybe they see like, oh, this can give you strong in like 6 months. I'm like, oh, that's great. I want to get strong. Okay, I'm going to click on this ad. I want to learn more. Bang, micro level. But we can apply it as Facebook or the CMO from Facebook and eBay described it from a bigger mass level, a macro level. And so you can see like, okay, a lot of people don't know what we're doing. Let's attack this first. Then we can get maybe more into the interest and like pulling different interests for like what makes people interested, pulling those levers. So first thing, let's get the awareness here. Cool, let's do it. So we're going to focus on that. So that's what I did. And so I apply it out and I'm like, this makes sense. I'm like, this makes really sense. And so that was the first thing. I was like, okay, awareness, that's our first focus. And then if we look at a micro level, I know I'm jumping back and forth, but I'm just kind of going off the cuff here. Maybe it makes sense. I was like, okay. And I was thinking more recently about this with my books even. I'm like, why is it when I read certain books, I feel like some of them I'm like, I have to read this. And then other times I feel like I'm kind of forced myself to read it, but then I like it. I'm happy I read it. And when I have a problem, I instantly feel like I know the answer. And it goes even to the AIDA framework. And I've just applied it. And this is what kind of also had this aha moment for me, is that this applies to everything. So for example, sometimes I'll buy books specifically because I have a pain, I have a problem. And so that's where I follow the AIDA framework. First, I get exposed to a book or information, and I only will take action on it once I have an experience, a pain, or a goal or desire that I want that will take me to the next step. For example, maybe I see there's a book on how to manage people. And right now I just stepped into a management role. I don't know anything about managing. If I follow the stage of awareness, I see a book. Okay, there's a managing book. Okay, I'm aware of it. Oh, I have experience recently that I'm going into a manager and my desire to be a good manager. okay, I'm gonna naturally follow through with, okay, this book's interesting me because I have a desire. Okay, now I hit the desire. Okay, that let me just buy this book. Action. There we go. Micro. We got a micro scenario of me doing it. And so when I had that moment of like, I read certain books, some books felt like I was just reading it for exposure, and that's all it really has to be. Sometimes you force yourself to read business books for exposure, so then when you actually have a problem or a desire or experience, then you have a reason to go back to that book and review it and actually make it make more sense. So a lot of times when you're reading these books, and I'm thinking about even back to college where I don't have the experience, I still don't think college was like, I think the best way to utilize college is when you're going through it, like actually run your business while you're going through college. I think that's the best way. Regardless, the whole point of there is exposure. And so that's the same exact thing here. So why am I saying this? Why, what am I really getting at with this idea? Well, when I started to realize that, I'm like, okay, so if we look at a micro level of individual level, we can grab attention with just like pulling someone's pants down, but doesn't mean they're gonna naturally follow through the rest of the steps of like, if I pull someone's pants down, I'm like, hey, I got this super um this great like crypto list that can make you a millionaire and everything. Would you want it? After I pull their pants down. No, they're not interested. Or like the people watching that video, if I like at the end of it say, hey, you want this crypto list? People are not gonna resonate with it at all. Because it's not the right target audience. And so when we understand this, when we understand that we gotta attract the right people, they'll naturally follow through those next steps because they had those experiences, because they had those pain points, because they had those desires to naturally want to get that action or get those things. So they're naturally going to follow from the awareness to interest to desire to action. And so I want you and I challenge you to kind of start thinking about this when you're ever marketing, doing like bigger campaigns, and maybe you're a video editor, so it doesn't really matter as much. It still matters because of copywriting, but if you're selling anything and you're doing a campaign, start to look at it from a macro view, but also an individual view, because the awareness you want should be people who are in maybe cryptos, in finance, who have a problem and want to become aware. And that segues directly into tip number 2, which is what is it? Which is the stages of awareness. Where are people at in their current moment? And I'm gonna make a simple, like obvious. I'm gonna make a very simple scenario here. It's not to confuse anyone, not to like segment anyone who might not understand cryptos or whatever. Let's just say I have some Kool-Aid that's absolutely the bomb, absolutely amazing, has electrolytes, but I don't have any customers. Meanwhile, in the city I'm at, I have maybe a competitor who sells the lemonade, and that's like the whole. Maybe he has a like a monopoly. Like he's selling lemonade. That's the only other thing out there right now. Just imagine here with me. So this guy got lemonade. I got some amazing Kool-Aid. It's better. It's cheaper. It tastes better. It's cheaper. It has electrolytes. He doesn't have any of that stuff. It just makes the most sense. Of course, I'm biased, but it makes the most sense for my customers. I have more value to give them. So how do I market this? Well, the big thing is they don't know about me, but I know there's a problem with the market out there. They're thirsty. And I know they're usually gathered at maybe in the city, this town, this like downtown where they're going shopping and like it's hot out and they're sweating and whatever, they have to have the pain points. And so I know they're thirsty. I know they get thirsty at a certain time. And I know that's where the lemonade place stands. So what I'm going to do is I'm aware of this. So I'm going to place myself right there on the sidewalk where like the main traffic is. And I'm going to say, are you tired? Like, are you thirsty? Well, I got the better lemonade. They know about lemonade. They already know about that. They get it. And they're like, whoa, what do you mean the better lemonade? Okay, I'm interested. Tell me about it. I'm meeting where they're at. I know they're thirsty. And they know they have they know about lemonade. So I'm going to use that to their advantage. I don't try to sell them like Kool-Aid. Like, what the heck is Kool-Aid? What the heck is this red stuff that you're swirling around? I want my yellow stuff that I know that I've had before that I like. And so for me, I'm saying I got the lemonade killer, the ultimate lemonade 2.0, the better lemonade. It's like, whoa, is that why it's red? Oh yeah, like, oh yeah, baby. It has electrolytes, it has, it's cheaper, it's better for you. It's overall just better. Try it out. First one on the house. I guarantee you'll like it better. And the second one, well, obviously it's gonna cost, but you're gonna want more after that. And so, what? There's a couple of things you can unpack here. What I just did is I just laid out basically the stages of awareness, the temperature of the audience. How? What is the stages of awareness? What am I even talking about? For people to know, it'd be quite simple, quite clear. But the stages of awareness outlines where the person is on their journey. And so we can understand that this is people who understand where they are and understanding exactly what you're selling and your products. So in this scenario, we're in a state where there's a lot of people who have a problem. Let me actually step back first. So quite physically, right? So stage of awareness, it outlines that you go from unaware to most aware. Most aware, people know your product, what you have to sell. This is usually a very small selected group. Unaware is bigger. And so it's huge because a lot of people don't know it, obviously. Yeah. And so the next step from unaware is problem aware. These people know they have a problem. A lot of these people, the people on the street that's in the city, know they have a problem. They are thirsty. But a lot of them also know there's a solution out there. They know that there's lemonade, but they don't know that there is Kool-Aid. They don't know there's a Kool-Aid, a better thing out there. So a lot of these people, this huge segment of people, a lot of them are in the solution where they know there's a solution out there, but might not know my solution. So that's where I meet them. And so why this is important, and let me finish the rest of the scale before I get into why this is important. And when you go from solution aware to then you go to product aware. Product aware is they're aware of my product. And then I think most aware is, I don't know, I forget what most aware is. Like, I think the same thing as product aware. I forget what that is. But anyways, why is this important? Well, I can tell you it's important because if you don't actually understand it, you got absolutely ruin your you got absolutely like have the wrong conversations. You're gonna fail in your sales. You're gonna have lower sales, have a harder time really communicating with customers, and it's just gonna be a rough time overall. When you actually understand it, when you really fundamentally get it right, you're gonna have sales flooding into you. You're gonna be just like this Kool-Aid person who's gonna attract all the audience, and soon enough they're gonna be the monopoly and the lemonade killer. That's what they're gonna say in the headlines. They're gonna say the lemonade 2.0. If you get this right, you're gonna absolutely dominate. And so when we understand this, when we start to understand that, okay, I have Kool-Aid. I know these people are solution aware. They know that there's lemonade out there. Maybe some people don't like the lemonade, but it's by choice. They just have to do it because it's the only choice out there. Maybe they are just like, they're just comfortable because it's the default. That's fine. So I meet them where they're at. And so this formula, this framework more so tells me what is the conversation I need to have. I can't tell people about Kool-Aid because they don't know what Kool-Aid is. I'm not going to start saying Kool-Aid is back. And you're like, what the heck even is Kool-Aid? I'm like, oh, we just made our Kool-Aid even better. Like, I'm like, okay, I don't really know what Kool-Aid is, so I don't care. And so when you look at like even these celebrities, they're able to get away with saying like when I look at like X, when I'm on X, they say there's like kind of like these fan accounts where just say, like, for example, this celebrity is doing X thing, or they're a streamer and they say this celebrity just did this thing and they have a clip below it. And it's like they're able to get away with that because I am aware of that person. I have that awareness, and that goes back to the first tip of awareness, ADA. But also, I'm aware of the product of that person is practically the product. We get to call them the product. And so they don't have to do explaining of who the celebrity is because everyone knows them. So for me, I'm like, oh, I'm like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. And so it starts to pull together certain things where you don't have to do explaining. And so you go where the conversation is in their head currently. And so that's how, when we start to look into, okay, how do you grab people's attention? This is where the trend jacking makes sense. People all focus on this news event. Okay, I'm going to angle my ads. Maybe I'm going to angle my videos on my first couple minutes or seconds on this event, and then I'm going to segue into why this is important, and then start to try to transition into my product or why I have to sell. Cool. So when we start to understand fundamentally, when we start to really unpack this this um this framework of where are people, and I'll give you more example. Like let's just say someone's let's just say I'm selling like a, let me go back to my crypto list. So we have a crypto list, and we're trying to get people in between financial chairs, like in between people in finance who might not be big in the crypto. So what is the conversation? I'm not going to sell them on, I'm not going to sell like, hey, we got this crypto list. Like if I'm trying to sell to people in finance who are not interested in crypto in the first place, why should they care? And so the conversation is going to be different. I'm going to be like, this simple instead of saying like crypto list, I'm going to give you this crypto list. It's absolutely amazing. I start to switch the conversation to, this simple list has made over 200 millionaires. And then I put like maybe in parentheses, and it could make you a millionaire as well. And so now it got me interested. I'm like, okay, if I'm in finance, I'm like in the finance niche, most likely the reason I'm in there is because I probably have a pain point of, I don't have tons of money and I want to get rich. Typically, that's the typical like framework of get rich. And why finance works so well is because it's a big pain point. People say there's the idea that the three kind of big niches that usually any business kind of falls into, service business, is either health, wealth, or relationships. That's because if we look at the Maslow hierarchy of needs, it's because like those are major pain points. People always have that. That's a universal pain of, I always want to have a good relationship. I always want to be like rich and well off. I always want to be healthy and like live longevity. So those always have a degree of being permanent in our society. So when I'm talking about finance people, these people have a pain of like they want to make money. Now, usually that's upstream for me. Now, when you look at it, like we have finance, like making money. Okay, that's a big circle here. Let's hone in more specifically on crypto. That's one way of making money. Other ways are drop shipping, Airbnb, like house rentals, whatever it may be, stocks. I mean, there's so much different stuff, right? There's gambling, there's whatever it may be, streaming, right? Content creation. You got all these different areas. And so those are smaller sub niches within a big niche. And so usually when you're having these conversations, you have to go upstream and pull this big audience to you to get them interested. And so that's one way of looking at it. You pull them and make them interested in what you do. And so you have to have the conversation there with them so they can understand it, so you can naturally guide them. So that's when I have a crypto list that maybe I'm just promoting for the first time or within a couple of years, and now I want to grab a lot of people's attention. How do we do this? We just shape it to the conversation. Like I said, okay, these people want to make money. Okay. Well, this list has made tons of millionaires already. Why don't we make that a conversation? Why don't we say how this crypto list made over 200 millionaires and how this could make you a millionaire yourself? and how it could do the same for you. And so if I had like a video title like that, that'd be like, whoa, I want to know. And I say simple. So these people say, oh, it's simple. Okay, I should be able to do it then. Or I could say how this crypto list made two, or this, how this crypto list helped over 200 regular people become millionaires. They're like, oh, regular people? I'm a regular person. I should be able to let me find out. And so that's what, when you really understand the temperature and who you're talking to, that's where it comes to play. And so these two things, when you really understand these two things I just mentioned, ADA and the temperature of your audience, you're going to absolutely kill it. Now, that's great. But what is the fundamental shift I talked about at the beginning when I was looking at YouTube videos? That when I started looking at them, like, whoa, these pattern, I'm seeing a common pattern here that just makes sense. And it's actually what I've already used in my example of the crypto list. It is what typically you'll see with, I think, news. You typically see with news, but you can see it all around with financials a lot. You can search up pretty much like how I made. Just say like how I made, and you can put $, and you'll see tons of videos do this. And so the purpose of these are the top of the funnel to grab the people who are unaware and then make them more aware about what you do. And the thing I noticed when I was looking at a lot of these YouTube channels or YouTube videos when I was on my homepage is I noticed that everyone kept on using, I think it's like the 5 W's, or like the journalist approach is using what, how, the, or it's like what, how, why, when, etc. When you use that, it's powerful. And you can always use that to open up a curiosity loop in someone's mind. What do I mean by this? You can easily search it up, but I remember there's one that's like how this AI OnlyFans thing makes me $7,000 a month. And I'm like, whoa, I didn't know that, but now I do, but I'm kind of curious. And it's all because he's like, okay, if I add how, and I just like list like the stats on what I made over this past month, that grab attention. I remember I was looking at another channel and they were in cryptos and then looking at specifically liquidity stuff. You don't need to know what that is. Don't have to worry about it. But basically, it was a way of making money passively, right? And so for them, they're like, how I made $700 with liquidity pools in one day. And so you see consistently every time it's how, or why. Like why have 200 regular people made over or become millionaires using this simple crypto list? Whoa, okay. And so what it does is these words at the beginning, the why, how, it sets it up for a curiosity loop to get someone interested. And so when you start framing it like this, when you start asking like kind of like a question, like how are this person doing it, or why is this happening, or like why is this important? I've already said this in this video, especially when you add like a pause, like, okay, I just laid this all out, but how are you actually going to implement it? It's a question you may have, and when you have a pause, it's powerful. I need to take more pauses in my videos. Understand? I'm on a Celsius, whatever. So, so with that, like, when you start to understand these two concepts, but then add this framework of, can you add a how, can you add a why to the front of this, and then that makes it as a question. And you see it all the time. Like, I think it's like how I started a personal brand and made over 30K in 1 month. Wow, that's interesting. It's like actually, you know what? How actually did you do that? So like you just tee up the question in the mind, and then they're like, oh wait, I'm interested in that because that has a pain point. Like I have a pain, and that's a desire I want. So for them, they become aware of your solution. You see, when we look at that, but let's just say the OnlyFans one, how I make over $7,000 using AI OnlyFans or whatever a month. So if you look at where these people at, these people have a pain. They want to make money, but they typically know there's solutions out there, But what you say, they don't know your solution. So what you do is say, you plug in the desire. The desire is to know about is to make money. So that's what he just did. He said, hey, you can make money with this specific mechanism, with this specific thing. And so he understands that. And he puts out a video. And so that grabs the people who are kind of solution aware / problem aware. And now he introduces them to his solution. Hey, this is my solution. And then at that point, you're like, okay, what is the next step? How do I take them from my solution to product aware? That's where you say, okay, that's where you have more like the that's where you introduce like, hey, the solution is the best solution for XYZ reason. That's why I have my product. And so that's where you can introduce like, hey, like if you're looking on achieving a solution, I have a product. So then you're like, okay, in the product stage, but how do I get them most aware, or how do I get them to actually buy? Well, that's where you say, that's really where it's objection handling. You say, okay, well, yes, there's some good stuff out there, but when you actually look at and break down the thing, typically if you look at Imran Ghazi, he was a really good example of this, where he look at other business models and say, well, this one's dumb. This one takes time to make money. This one's going to take forever. This is why mine's the best. And so when you break down their common objections, like usually it's like time, energy, money, education. Usually it's those like 4 things. And when you're able to break those down and say, okay, all these other options as well out there just absolutely suck compared to mine, kind of like we did with the Kool-Aid example, how it's like better, it's cheaper, it's better for you, has electrolytes. Naturally, it just makes sense for them. They're like, okay, I might as well just try this for this one time, or I might as well buy it. It makes the most sense. He seems like he knows what he's talking about. And so when you set up this pipeline, this outline, it starts to make sense and it starts working. So I'm gonna cut off this video now. Maybe it was helpful, maybe it wasn't. Hopefully it was. I know it's just a rant, but for me, these are just the things I'm learning. And if you found value from it, then I appreciate it. And I'll see you in the next video. Thanks.